So yeah, I can just hit record there.
Yeah.
Should start in a minute.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Karen, I'll let you take it away.
Well, welcome to our Lung Cancer Care Advisory Group. Christy, we're happy to have you here. We're going to get a few more in attendance, but what we were going to do today is we're going to actually kind of recap some really key things of what our plan is as the advisory group and some of the goals that we want to accomplish as an advisory group. So one of the things, and then we're going to have Annette's going to come in. She's going to be one of our key, giving us an update on one of the key programs that the American Lung Association is doing. Then one of the themes that we're going to be talking about for the advisory group today, one of our work sessions is going to be patient delays and bounce backs. And then when we complete that, and this is where we are going to engage all of us as lung force caregivers to give our insight, to give our knowledge and our wisdom and our experiences of what we had incurred when we walked our journey with our patients, with our loved ones is what I'm going to say. Then Ty, he's going to come in, give us the updates, and then we'll do our next steps, set our dates and timelines so we can be more assured that we will have a good attendance next time. So Ty and I, we're all now in lockstep. Our stars are right aligned now, right, Ty? And we'll be getting those dates. We're going to do save the dates to make it more convenient for everyone. So hopefully that makes us much more productive and efficient too as we go forward. Next slide. Move on, please. Next one. Okay, so I wanted to quickly talk about the advisory group to make sure we have a real clear understanding, because you see Annette on the presentations, you see me come in to the forum, and then we have Ty. So what I wanted to make sure we realize is, you know, Annette and her national role, we have 6 community advisory groups, and we are only one of those advisory groups. So you can see her and Ty have a big responsibility in supporting all of these advisory groups. Annette has a responsibility of running and making sure all of these advisory groups have the resources, the tools, and they deliver the value the American Lung Association is expecting. So with that said, I wanted us to realize that as we go forward, the Lung Cancer Caregiver Advisory Group now is going to be Ty and I, because I'm chairing it for the next couple of years, and our goals and what we want to accomplish will be set by all of our lung force heroes from our different states. So next slide, please, Annette. So we had all talked, I want to just quickly talk about this, but our goal as the advisory group is we want to make sure we come back and give them specific input on some of their projects that they're undertaking and some of their initiatives. So Ty, what Ty and I are going to do is we want to gather that input, and I want to put it under the advisory group so all of us as a group gets to see our input. So we will be moving forward as a group. I'd like us not to have 8 or 10 or 12 sponsors going in and then us as a group never be able to see the input that we are giving. So giving you heads up, Ty and I will be coordinating all that information and presenting it as the advisory group for lung cancer caregivers. We're also going to be input from consideration on maybe gaps that we're seeing for patients, things that we might need as caregivers that are for high risk, that are underserved, and that are diverse population. So it's our job to also help them know what kind of resources we might need to have in that process. The third bullet, I have a difficult time seeing that, Annette, because let me see if I have this. It's my fault, maybe. There you go. Let me see. What slide are we on now?
All right, this is the one, the responsibilities.
Yeah, let's go back one quick to the other slide, Annette. Sorry. I think we covered all of that. So anyway, for right now, we'll go to the next slide. So I just wanted to quickly recap. I think everyone understands this. We also want to have these conference calls are really important, but Ty and I, and even Annette, might periodically reach out to each of you individually. So for example, I wanted to get more information on the Immerman Angels. So Jay is actually one of the key participants in one of those. And so I called him and had a brief dialogue work session with him on what value, what he likes from that partnership. And so that might happen with other members in the advisory group. So one of the key things is we want to review our partnerships. We want to view our programs. We want to know the value that they provide. So we, as regional representatives here, can make sure those resources are known throughout our area. So that kind of goes down to the next thing. And I'm going to expect all of you to read the next 6 because we all know those. If you have questions, you want more clarity on any of those, please call us. But I just want to give you the key points that I wanted to emphasize the most. Next slide. So on the advisory group, everyone realizes the American Lung Association has 6 regions. So when Annette and I joined forces, our goal is we wanted representation from all of these 6 regions. So we would feel like we are getting a national kind of input for our American Lung Association resources regarding caregivers. So this is the group that we have. I want this group. This isn't Karen running the show every quarter or Ty running the show. This is us creating this cohesive unit, all of us giving our wisdom and our knowledge and our input. And when we are doing a deliverable to Annette, or we are giving input to Annette, and she's going to be presenting that, it's being presented as the advisory group, the patient care advisory group. So I want us, the caregiver, I should say, but I want us all to realize how important we are. In that capacity, I'm going to share, like, I represent Georgia. So I am in the Southeast. So I should have representation. That is my responsibility to make certain states in the Southeast know of some of these resources as a caregiver. So like Florida is in mine, North Carolina. So when you look at you as a member, just be aware, I am going to maybe say, hey, you know, I need to talk to someone in New York. I want to get a perspective on something in the Northeast. Time might say, we need to get some feedback from the Northwest. We're going to go over to Jay and see what he can help us. So we're going to start kind of fine tuning these regions, and we have to make sure all of us are actively engaged. And if we have, you know, gaping holes where people just don't have the commitment, Annette and I and Ty will need to find people who do, because it's so important we don't leave anyone out. We want to make sure that all states are covered. So that in a nutshell is kind of a quick overview of all of this. And I'm going to let Annette take the lead. One of the things that Ty and Annette and I have decided is that we want to organize our quarterly calls to have a presentation on a resource that we have. It also is going to be us having a work session on a very specific area. And then Ty's going to come in and give us updates on what's happening with all of our national resources. So our presenter this quarter is Annette. She's going to tell us on one of the exciting pilots that she's kicking off. When she does that, Ty and I are going to be looking for any input. Ty and I will be working behind the scenes to make sure we gather input from all of you, and to keep you guys abreast of how we want to learn how we might want to use this in our program, because we are caregivers. So this is going to be an extremely important document. So Annette, one of the things Ty and I will do is we will want to get people to raise their hand if they have actually had the opportunity. Number one, they have gotten the document and seen it. Number two, that they have actually read the document. So if you're not on the call, I'd like you definitely to ping Ty and I on one of those 2 things. Number one, you have gotten it. Number 2, you had the opportunity to read it. And Annette, please share with us the great progress you guys have made.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And one thing that we will note is that, you know, we are recording we'll record all of our programs, and we will send it out for folks, because some folks, you know, may not have the opportunity to come at the designated time. So we'll make sure that you guys, that everyone has the opportunity to review the content and participate, regardless if they're on the call. So I really wanted to talk about our Lung Cancer Courage Kit. This was actually an idea that was generated in probably about 2018 from our original lung cancer patient advisory group. We created the group to kind of understand what it was like to be newly diagnosed as a patient, and what are the things that were helpful, what are the things that were not helpful, and what would you like to see? You know, resoundingly, what came out from that original conversation was that a lot of lung cancer patients didn't feel supported from the healthcare side, or from like American Lung Association side, or or nonprofits. They had, if they had family members, they just weren't quite sure. When they got their diagnosis, they were really overwhelmed, and they just said, you know, I don't know where to look for a mentor. One of the other big issues was support groups. You know, people who there were other support groups for in their hospital system for breast cancer or different cancers, but they could not find a niche for lung cancer. So we created what was, a lung cancer courage kit. It was all things recommended and curated by lung cancer patients of what could have been helpful. So really the goal is educational, and also to give someone the opportunity to feel supported and let them know that support is available. It is a fantastic program. As with anything that's fantastic, there is a cost associated with it. And so we have struggled we've done these courage kits for in different pilots in different regions. And, you know, the items that you can see and that are shown, you know, they are, it's not like a local store would have a blanket to give to you. You have to order from national vendors. So we're trying to come up with ways to streamline it so that things can be more affordable, and get sponsorships and grants to do this. But I had sent an email to the lung cancer patient advisory group and also the caregiver advisory group to get feedback on, you know, was this helpful, and what types of things would you like to see in it? And so I will send after this, and also will provide an email, the survey link. We did a survey to get feedback from folks of what was helpful, because, you know, it's listed in this picture here. It was a blanket, it was chapstick, it was, at this point, it was a mask. This brochure on the right hand side has content of, you know, different resources and where to go. But, you know, how do they meet the need? Is this really important? And as I said, it starts by showing the patient that someone cares and is looking out for them. And again, we did hear that there were care packets for other cancers, but they just felt like lung cancer, they weren't getting the support. And also it was nice and helpful for them to have all of their resources in one location, which is in the brochure. So as with any successful program, you have to have an objective. And what is the objective of a Courage Kit program nationwide? And it is to provide newly diagnosed lung cancer patients with items that provide support and comfort, and give them education and support materials. Encourage them to go to lung.org and to look for the newest information that we have. And remember that the Lung Association is really here for them, and we want to know what we can do. In the survey that we sent to folks, and we will present to the next meeting the findings of our survey. There were a couple interesting things this time. We had an individual that said, I know where resources are. I know where you are. I go to your website. What I want is, I want to know, like, so I'm going through chemo right now. Like, what's a nutrition plan, or what's a good thing to eat, or what can help me, have less inflammation or make me feel better, like things to eat. When I'm feeling up to it, what are some good exercises for your mind and your body that you could do? Like, give me non-written things. Sometimes it's hard for me to read, and I want some downtime. I want to hear about what, in addition to this, what else can you tell me about good podcasts, things like that. Another piece of it is that, tell me what I have to do next step. So now I have my diagnosis. Like, what do I have to look forward to? Like, tell me, you can anticipate you're going to lose, your eyebrows. And I mean, like, they were very specific, but they were very informative of maybe reworking of what a lung cancer patient should expect. So this really, the goal of this is for us to do a better job of making sure not only for patients, but as caregivers as well, like that's why I'm super excited to hear from folks of what, when you went through this journey with your loved one, what did you wish you had, and what could be more helpful? So, Christy, not to put you on the spot, because I think you might be the one on the call, but was there anything when you went through this with your mom, was there anything that you can remember that you wish you had, or would like to see, because now in the era of online support, we have access to so many things.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about, I kind of like stumbled across y'all because I saw a preview, like a story on TV about the upcoming Walk for Air or whatever it was called at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that idea of what to expect that feels less clinical, because I do think, like, the doctor tells you what to expect, but I think it is a little, I don't know, it's just not as maybe warm or friendly as you might want. I think as you were talking about like what to eat and, those kinds of things, it's almost like if someone were talking to a friend rather than talking to like a doctor or an organization or something like that, what are those kind of like more helpful, hopeful tips and tricks rather than like a whole lot of information. So yeah, I don't know if that's super helpful, but
no, it is. And I think, and have time to, mull over it too, because I think another thing that, and it was actually one of my daughter's friends who got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's leukemia, and she was 20 years old. And that was really hard to understand, like what her journey was going to look like. And, with our relationship with Immerman's Angels, like I was trying to connect her with someone, and she just wasn't ready yet, because she had a lot of friends and family, but she was just like, thanks, Mrs. Iyer, but I'm kind of good, And so one of my friends, who also, the girl was like probably 23, she told this 23-year-old, she wrote a letter to Emily and said, you know what, I get you, but let me just tell you what I had to deal with and like what you have to look forward to. Make sure you do X, Y, and Z. And Emily said that was such a good guidepost for her. Even all the things that LLS had was great, but she wanted to hear from someone who went through it. Like, and she's like, I didn't know I was going to lose my eyebrows. I didn't know these types of things. So that's, I think, a really good, I was encouraged when I saw that. So that's the kind of input that we want. We know we have a good structure for, blankets and masks and things like that. We want to know those things that patients really want to hear and see, because that's.
Yeah, sorry. I wonder if it is more like, is there some way to compile like stories of, other folks and that kind of thing, like similar to the Lung Force, like page online, but, maybe shorter, even snippets or something like that.
Yep. I was even thinking, absolutely. And that's what I was even thinking of, some of the heroes that have participated, even doing like, again, it's like little vignettes, if it's a video blurb or something like that, that you could, in a series do that you could give to people. So, yeah.
So Annette, I have a question, if I may.
Absolutely.
On Courage Kits, where do you see that being initiated? If a cancer patient comes in, where are they going to hear about this Courage Kit? At what point will it come engaged in their walk they're going to be taking?
Absolutely. That's a really good question and a really good point. So, and we are basing it on different locations. Ultimately, when we kicked this off before, it was, a nurse navigator at a hospital system, because they usually are the first entry. It's like they get they get their diagnosis. And when they first meet with, their radiologist, or, the doctor that's going to start their journey, it was a nurse navigator that would help them through the process of making sure they have the paperwork. But the pandemic hit, and a lot of hospital systems were obviously discouraging patients to come in if it wasn't absolutely necessary. But if they were, they wanted to limit their time and exposure. So also, hospital systems didn't want to house anything else that they didn't need to house. So that initial thought of having it being housed in the hospital sort of went away for 2 years because hospital systems were not amenable to that. We did have an ability that we were sending them, that we would have a little postcard. The nurse navigator would talk about it and then give it to the patient and say, go online and fill it out. That wasn't super successful because they have a lot of other stuff to worry about, and that just seemed to be like an added burden. And that was another question that we have in the survey of, what do you think would be a good delivery system, or who was that first person that should be giving it out to you? So again, we're looking at different, because it's not a one size fits all. This particular pilot is in Nevada, and because we had a funder who lost a family member and gave and saw what his mother went through, and the two things that his mother struggled with was he didn't feel like there was a lot of support, as in a support group, and or he loved this Courage Kit idea to honor her. So that is why that pilot is in Nevada, but it's very rural. So this may be something that the nurse navigator will ask the patient, or someone asks the patient if they'd be interested, and then we mailed it to them. But ultimately the goal is to not only make them feel supported, but then have them allow us to be part of their treatment journey. And so that we as an organization, as a public health organization, can do a better job of making sure we're meeting the needs that they want. That's not duplicating what's already out there. So that's part of the conversation that we're trying to do, but open for recommendations on other ways or different people to give it to.
Because my comment on is that I think the Courage Kit is fantastic. And one of the elements is how that would be introduced, how that would even become knowledge to a patient as they're entering into that journey. Once I got this kit, of course, I could give my comment from my perspective, is that I just found that once the diagnosis happened, it was like fast. We got to do this. We got to do this. Things are just moving. We got to line this up. We got to line this up. And if there's anything I could and Michael could have appreciated, was just to have that knowledge and the courage to slow down and be able to just absorb the diagnosis that you got, be able to get your thoughts together, and then your courage gets, and to have the courage to ask questions, because we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what journey we're going to be going on. And
Yep.
so we don't, you just say, oh, the doctor knows everything. And you just follow along, just they're pulling you along and you just going. And I think if we had the courage to ask more intelligent questions, I think there could have been better decision-making for Michael and I that could have really helped him much, much better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be my number one thing, a courage kit that says you have the courage to ask questions and to slow down, and to be able to say, these are the kind of questions you should be asking. These are very important. And then next one I would say is I wish I would have had a little bit of understanding too about, as a patient, and the support. This is really important. You have these different types of support bases. There's emotional support, there's knowledge support, there's all these different bases of knowledges that you might need. And I think in a courage kit, that would be so important, because I just think different people play different strengths on a patient's journey. Some are not they don't want to know the details of your cancer, but other ones are just very inspirational. Other ones are like, let me go do some research for you, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's my high level kind of review of that so far.
I love it. I think it's great.
Well, and I wonder if, like, I'm thinking of, I just had a friend tell me, like, that one of his friends who's like only 40, has 3 kids under 10, was just diagnosed with lung cancer. And I was like, oh, well, like, I don't know this person, but if they would want to talk to me for whatever reason, or like, just whatever, like, put me in touch. It would be cool though if I could like go online and order one of these to send to someone. And I don't know like how popular that would be if it weren't someone like engaged with the organization on a big, but you never know. I mean, it could be another tactic.
I absolutely love that, Christy, because part of what we so when I say this, not to be too to to make too much of a commitment, the donation in Nevada was a significant one. And I think what it's going to do, it's going to allow us to have the opportunity to have sort of that base that we can do something like this, and that we can have, especially our advisory group members or other heroes, yes, like make that connection and send it to them, have the ability to do that, because it isn't supposed to be, we don't want it to be quid pro quo, but you know that when someone sends you something and is, you're right, thoughtful and reaches out, you know, it does give you the ability through you to learn more about how we can help someone. The other, excuse me, the other thing that one of my friends who, Tim Groller, he was a police officer and he passed away 2 years ago. He had 3 small children. And he said to me, you know, my wife could really use a break and an ability to to take a little bit of, you know, a step away from it. And so could my kids. Maybe like add some kind of local link of, you know, things that families can do. Or, you know, if it's like, I know Camp Kesem is an amazing organization that my daughters were involved with. And Camp Kesem is a camp for kids' parents who have cancer. It's 100% paid for. They go away for a week, and it really focuses on them and doesn't make it all about the sadness that sometimes may be at the house. And so that's another piece of it too that I want to explore more of, you know, just localize, coming up with resources, and, you know, having the resources linked to online. That way it can be ever changing. It can't be as stagnant because resources are going to come and go. But yeah. No, I love that idea, Christine. That's actually one of the things that I'm going to make a note on is how we can do that.
Yeah, I like that. This is Jay. Sorry I was late.
Hi,
I like
Jay.
that idea as well. For some reason,
Mhm.
somebody triple booked me for that other 30 minutes. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, but that was a great idea. I also, you know, I get reached out to all the time by people that either have family members that had cancer or have recently passed from cancer, and having that resource to be able to provide them with additional information besides just having to talk with them
Right.
would be, you know, definitely beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
And I think that's where we kind of will look to our regional people to say, you know, what's in your area that's really cool or really good for families or for patients. And that was another note that came in through the survey, was that just because I have lung cancer doesn't mean that I want to wear a lung and that I want to always talk about my cancer.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and it's completely true. You know what I mean? And sometimes we think as a public health organization and we want to get it out there, but sometimes we have to remember it's a person and that they don't want to be identified by their cancer. We want to help them with their other parts of their journey as well. I'm sure you guys, did you hear that a lot?
Yes, that was one of the key things. You know, I always like to know what was their wish list, and Mike's was, I don't want to talk about my cancer all the time. I don't want my family to, every time we get together, it's all about my cancer. So this Courage Kit, he probably would not have been engaged in. It would have been the caregiver who would have said, I'm going to take this Courage Kit and I'm going to see what it has to offer. There's certain things he would have wanted to know. Would you want to talk to someone on this or talk on that? It's like I said, each component of what support they're looking for would be really valuable. But I think this Courage Kit, I do think the advisory group can give some really important input and usage of this, because I think the caregiver group is the one who sees the value of this and can really apply it, Annette.
Right.
And many elements. I mean, I know my daughter, she would have done the R&D and been on your website looking at anything and everything, you know, and then I would have had someone else, I know I'm going to go do this and this, and I'm going to go talk to a Jay and find out what he thought about this, you know. So I see the caregiver having this as a valuable tool for them as support too, and that just giving you feedback on that when I saw this.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. The other piece of it too, that from the initial feedback from the survey that I got from the groups were having a piece on, mindfulness and just how to decompress, or how to process stress and things like that. That was another, not that we're going to be the leading experts on it, but providing links, like, even if it's the Calm app or things like that, like kind of providing things that can just be a go-to. Okay, great. Well, this was super helpful. So if you haven't, we're going to send out to the group as a whole, for those who are not attending, resend the link and the brochure again to look at the brochure. That would be very helpful.
And Annette, what we will do as a group, Ty and I'd like to see us kind of reach out directly to each one of them, Ty, and as a group kind of do, a checklist of how we as a group have done that as far as reviewing everything and giving feedback, because I'd like to know what their thoughts on that too, Annette, and that we can streamline. And even as you go through that pilot, we want to welcome that we get, if you guys are coming across any challenges or kind of gaping holes you don't understand, we definitely want you to come back to this group. That's what we're here for. Absolutely. So that sounds great. And then Ty and I would take the lead to kind of keep that documentation on this pilot for you, Annette.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Super excited. So thank you. Thank you for giving me, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to kind of walk through this with folks, but more to come. And I will pass it back to you, Karen.
Okay, great. So we started off talking at the beginning of our work session that we were going to, Ty and I have talked about, and with Annette, we have decided we want to have certain components of our quarterly meetings. And one of them is to talk about key areas we have experienced as caregivers. And so I have kind of put out there for the next 3 sessions, what are some key areas we can get your knowledge, get your insight and your experience, what we learned from that, and more importantly, what would we, as we go forward, advise other caregivers in this area, and how would it help them? And so to start off this one, and we have a small team here, but we'll cover it the best that we can because we only got a couple of minutes, but patient delays and bounce backs. And what I mean by bounce backs, this is, it's not going to, Annette had a good question. She said, would this be like when it's a financial bounce back? And I said, it's usually a bounce back either between practitioners. An oncologist is getting a bounce back from maybe a pulmonologist and the patient sitting in the middle. And so Mike had that situation. A doctor's order went from the oncologist, went over to a thoracic surgeon. What came out of that? There was some kind of, Mike had some side effects of something. They go to the pulmonologist, said, no, you need to go to the oncologist. The oncologist says, no, you need to go back. Those are bounce backs, and those were delays. All the whole time, Mike was sitting in there in this hole, suffering, having this pain, and that delay was actually impacting it because his fluid then went to his heart. So with that, that was a brief sample, but those are some of the critical things that we need to learn as an advisory group from all of our expertise. I want to open it up and get any kind of patient delays and bounce back that both of you have learned from that. And anyone who listens to this outside of this call, to please share their thoughts on in this area too. So I'm going to open it up. Jay, if maybe you can kick us off with any kind of maybe delays or any bounce back that you thought were, pretty risky for your experience, for your loved one on their journey.
So it was interesting. When we first started the journey, it was, I was super proactive in as far as being a caregiver was concerned. So I was trying to set up appointments with the oncologist even before she was diagnosed with cancer. So as we set up the appointments with the pulmonologist, and then I'd already booked, like, okay, we're going to have an appointment anyway, even though you don't have cancer. So, technically. So then once the surgery came, the bronchoscopy was done, then, and came back positive with cancer, she already had an appointment. So I didn't have any patient delays in that particular piece of it.
That's
So
great.
for us, because I was always on top of all the appointments and all on top of all of the, being super proactive in the whole process, and then went to every appointment, went to every, transfusion, everything. I went to every single item. That way I always stayed on top of, the radiologist, the pulmonologist, going through all of the, the chemotherapy appointments, everything. I didn't really have any patient delays or bounce backs for
That's
us.
good.
So, yeah. So, the ultimate end wasn't good, but there was no real, real problems for me.
And Christy, what about you? Any feedback from?
Yeah, so I feel like my experience was opposite, because I remember like multiple times screaming at the practice manager on the phone being like, what do you mean you don't have an available appointment this week?
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember there was a time when we went to, so my mom was being treated in Lancaster, and we were happy with her care for the most part, but kind of got to the place where like she was a little bit written off, like, okay, everything's done.
Yep.
Now, we've done all we can. So we decided to go to the University of Pennsylvania for a second opinion. And that was one of the times when I think it was the most delay, because they wanted to see like updated scans. She had like maybe month-old scans, but they wanted new scans. So it just seemed like the elements that folks wanted were like what took so long. And between that time, like this was a super fast growing sort of situation. So it just, I know that there were times, and even when like they finally discovered her brain mets, like I think it was after like 5 weeks of her like having lost the ability to read anymore. And so it was just like, I don't know, it seems like a doctor orders something, it may take a week and a half, to get in, then it takes a few more days for the
Right.
results to come, then it takes a few more days or weeks for you to get it. It seems like a really long process when things can change like really rapidly with disease progression.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's what I think is going to be interesting, Jay. Okay. Because your experience is different from our experience.
Well,
And so-
I do have one delay that I do want to bring up, and
Okay.
you totally Chris, you just reminded me of it. And that delay was for the brain scan piece of it, and that was due to insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, because insurance said because of the lung cancer that the likelihood of it actually migrating to the brain was very limited, so they didn't approve the brain scan. Now it did metastasize in the fluid around the brain and the stem as well, the spinal stem, whatever. She did end up having to have radiation done as well there, but that was the one delay that insurance caused.
So Jay, did you say, so, of course, part of the work that we do a lot of work is access to care and having quality and affordable healthcare, which includes preventative medicine and preventative costs. So in this regard, so you said that your insurance didn't cover it. Did you?
No, I didn't say they didn't cover it. Well, they denied.
Denied it. Yeah. So you had to go back for a second. You had to go back to get it pre-approved, or
Yes.
okay, get it approved. Okay. So I just thought about something, and I don't even know that this is possible, but it could be an interesting exercise. Sidebar, I did a focus group with chronic cough patients, and we had 4 or 5 chronic cough patients and 4 or 5 doctors that were in the forum. And it was an opportunity for patients to, it's obviously very different. I'm not trying to compare the two diagnoses at all, but it was an interesting dynamic where the patients had the opportunity to say to the doctor, like, I am so frustrated because you bump me from place to place to place. And, I feel like when I call you back, I don't get the response that I want. And, from the doctor's perspective, is they were frustrated because they felt as healthcare providers, they weren't meeting the needs of the patient. And so is there something, maybe we create some kind of a survey or a volunteer questionnaire that we partner and kind of get an idea of what is a reasonable expectation for approvals, or a reasonable expectation of once you get this scan done, what should we expect? Does it expect 2 to 3 days?
I think that's a great idea. I think that, as a caregiver, we had no understanding of the expectations, right? So,
okay.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very subject to health systems, and
Yeah.
everybody may be different, but I think having a ballpark, I think that's something when you said that, it made me think about, understand when Christy said it, it's made me think about, try to level set what to expect.
It's interesting, Jay, that you made the appointment beforehand, because I would have never thought to do that, but that is so smart. And I don't know if every doctor would let someone even do that, but I mean, that's such a good trick.
They weren't going to let me.
Okay.
But I was forceful enough that they allowed me to.
Well, and that's the other thing, Annette, just how to be a patient advocate that gets things done, because I do feel like that was a super frustrating experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a main thing that you have to be, is absolutely advocating for, if you're a caregiver, absolutely advocating for the patient. And if you're a patient, because I mean, sometimes, particularly if you had a brain metastasis, you might not be able to think appropriately. So you need someone to think for you. And then as you go through all these, you're going through chemo, you're going through radiation, you're going through all these things. There's so much coming at you. You really need a second set of ears to hear what's going on in every one of the meetings, because you don't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the takeaways from this delays and bounce back. So there are things that we do have control. I mean, there's some good knowledge we got. Is there are areas we maybe could learn, or we can come up with ideas of how to be proactive. I do think there are some things, as appointments like Christy was saying, we might not have control over to be proactive in. There's certain situations from my perspective that an order is signed, go get the appointment, and the delay was getting that appointment between two providers, and that delay caused a serious impact. So it wasn't like we weren't working on it, it's that it was a handoff and it just had a delay. So those are some really key areas. And what I'd like to do is we're going to recap our notes and kind of put some thoughts together, wait for other input from other lung force heroes, caregivers who can give us their input. And then I'll circle back with our group, probably in the, maybe second or third time, maybe the third quarter on this meeting, and see what we can come up. Because the key goal here is to also come up with some potential ideas, some potential solutions that we can bring back in some kind of a written form that we can think of. So with that said, I appreciate everyone's input. It was fantastic. And I'd like to go ahead and take the next step. I do not know, is Ty here, Annette?
I can't see I know he said they were having tornado watches. I'm not sure is he still on the phone?
Looks like he dropped off.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go ahead and do that. That's what I thought. He had given us he was hearing the tornado sirens, which is probably very scary to hear the tornado sirens. So I will talk about
Yep. Welcome to the South. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, we just kind of just touch on a few things that we have done, organizationally in the lung cancer and advocacy space. We did have our annual Lung Force Advocacy Day. This was the third year that it was virtual. We are anticipating that we're hopeful that we can perhaps go back in person next year. It really is the opportunity to have a lung cancer patient / caregiver from every state, including the District of Columbia, to participate. And, this year it was successful. We had 114 participants and a total of 173 legislative meetings with our heroes from across the United States. And we had three, really important asks that we continue to make sure that our members of Congress understand and hear in real person voice from our heroes is, please make sure that healthcare is more affordable for millions of Americans. And at that time, we were able to do that by expanding the premium tax credit, making them permanent fixtures so that it makes a healthcare more affordable. The other ask was to continue to support the CDC, and that we were asking for $11 billion this year to the CDC so that we can rebuild healthier communities and protect our nation's health from lung disease, most certainly focusing on lung cancer. And our biggest and our continued ask that we're very proud of all the work that's been done is we were asking for $49 billion in funding for NIH so that there can be better early detection, treatments, and cures for lung cancer. We have found more often, we know that your members of Congress are elected by you, and they want to hear from their constituents. And we found that it's been helpful. During the pandemic, we were concerned about how the engagement level would be of doing virtual meetings. And we have to say that we've had a really good response from members of Congress and their staffers of listening and doing the virtual piece. So more to come on that. And that's really, we do it every year, usually in April, the end of March, beginning of April.
Yeah, we hope it's in person this year because my son was asked to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be doing it for the Washington State. So
that's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and then the other thing, and again, I'm very sensitive to this piece. One of the risk factor, not the only risk factor for lung cancer, is from individuals who smoke. We know that there are other risk factors, and we want to make sure that that it's environmental. It could be genetics. This is just one of the risk factors, but we have a tremendous opportunity right now to save lives and reduce the toll of tobacco on the health of millions of Americans. And so we are asking for folks to reach out to the FDA to support that the menthol cigarettes and flavored cigarettes rule, that it is getting rid of them. So what happened was on April 28th, the FDA announced that two proposed rules, one to remove all menthol cigarettes and the other to remove all flavor cigarettes. So one slight little bump in the road is there is a sort of a pause now because one of the major folks that was named was Juul, because we know very much that Juul did very targeted advertising towards kids, and menthol is really the biggest user of our youth epidemic of using menthol cigarettes and vapes and vaping. So we have a petition where we're asking individuals to consider signing it to help us try to get this rule that we've been working on for so many years to really get these terrible products off the market. So that's just one of the areas that we're focusing on. We had Turquoise Takeover this year. Again, thank you for everyone who did participate. We had over 150 buildings and landmarks across the United States, and we had over 50 proclamations. And so again, it's every year. It's the second week in May that we kind of focus on raising awareness and trying to unify the nation to really turn turquoise and really talk about the importance of early detection and really getting the messaging out there. We launched a new Saved by the Scan campaign. All of this information, I'll send you the links in the and we'll send you the links in the email. But our new campaign is called A Hope Story. And this is really an inspirational public service announcements that uses an animated approach to tell the journey that leads from a current or former smoker to quit and ultimately get screened for lung cancer. This campaign was designated for one of the risk factors for lung cancer. And so this campaign was targeted for former smokers. And to this point, we have helped more than 750,000 Americans learn if they could be eligible for this new screen. That there was the guidelines were expanded last year. So again, this is just another campaign that we focused on one of the risk factors, but we continue to be excited to talk about ways that we can help get more people understanding that they potentially could be at risk and if their risk factors fall into this category. So more to come on that. But that's pretty much a broad overview of the national initiatives that we have. And so, Karen, I'll bring it back to you about next steps and meetings.
Sounds great. Now, is this our last slide we have here in it?
It is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. So what we're going to do on the next quarter, the first thing before we only got a couple of minutes here is I want to do a save the date. So our next meeting is going to be that we are proposing will be like in October. Okay. I do find that if we do it on a Thursday, the time frame that we're working with right now works great. Is everyone in agreement with that at this point? If we do it on a okay. And so if we're looking at our calendars, we definitely, Jay, we do want to avoid the holidays. That's part of our goal on these quarter meetings because we all got busy schedules. But save the date is what we're going to be going for. Okay. Do we find like this second Thursday of the month would be a good one to start off with save the date and see what kind of attendance we can get on that? So that would be like the second week in October and the second week in January.
I don't think I have a problem with either one of those two, personally.
Okay, well, we'll kick it off. If we do end up saying, gosh, maybe the third week would be better, but we are going to do save the dates. So as everyone knows, October and January, Ty would take the lead in getting those dates out to us. So they are on our calendar before August, but before the end of August, okay? Our theme, Jay, we talked about, we are going to be having a theme. So when we talk about our theme discussions, next week is going to be our next quarter, is going to be our theme discussions on communication pitfalls. Okay, that's going to be one of the areas. So as you come to it, as a caregiver, what kind of pitfalls did you have in the areas of communication in all aspects? So I want you to get your thinking cap on that. We also are going to have a section called Alliance Presenter. Like Annette gave us one of the national updates. So Jay, I wanted to see if you would be willing to help us. I would like the Alliance presenter to be the Immerman Angels. And I was hoping that they could come on, give us a couple of minutes on what they provide us as caregivers. So we all understand what this partnership provides us. And then Jay, I would like to see if you would be able to share some of the stuff you do as an Immerman Angel. Would you be available to help us on that?
Do you want me to contact the Immerman Angels to see if they can come on?
No,
we'll coordinate all that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with speaking to it. Do you want me to put together slides, or you want Immerman Angels to do that?
No,
we can do that. Yeah, the Immerman's Angels, we can coordinate that from our end. So you would just be giving you could add in slides if you want. We could share that with you, but we could present. We could work with Immerman's to do the slides.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and the Alliance partner will always have the responsibility to come in and present slides on their program. So that would never be a caregiver's responsibility. But Jay, if you have slides that you think will really communicate as an Immerman Angel, what you do, we welcome those slides and we'll coordinate all of that stuff through Ty. Okay. So that's where we are going to be working on next time, communication pitfalls. We got our dates for October and January, second Thursday, if that works for you. And if anyone has any questions, I do want to let you all know, and I did communicate this, even though we meet every quarter, we might be reaching out to you throughout the next quarter, okay? Jay, just as I reached out to you to get your input, we might do private one-on-ones with individuals. We might send surveys and be asking for your feedback. And always remember, when we send these surveys, you are representing our advisory caregiver. And so we're sending them because we really need your input. And Ty and I will formulate that information so all of us will see what kind of input we were able to share on that. Any comments, any suggestions you would like, or is everyone in agreement to carrying forward at this point?
No, I'm totally in agreement. That sounds great to me.
Great. Okay, well, I want you guys all to have a fantastic summer and fall. It's going to be cooler, and we'll talk back. Annette, I'll let you kind of do the close in case there's anything you want to present from the national side.
Yeah, I think Ty was able to come back on. I hope everything's okay there, Ty.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just a really bad storm out here, losing connection and going back and forth. But yeah, I just wanted to chime in and talk about potentially recruiting folks. I see a core group forming here. We definitely want to keep expanding. If anyone has any suggestions for people to join the group, send them my way. Email address is best. we'll think on our end, on the ALA end, for recruiting. I think, Christy, you have some things you want to say. Yeah, I think you did. But you know, send them my way. You know, like we definitely want to keep this rolling and growing. And we'll use this as a model for other groups as well. Those were just my 2 cents there.
Great.
And thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules. That means a lot to us.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, Annette, you still on? Ty? You gotta be. Hello?